Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a live stream Wednesday. Point three live. Up on top is your favorite, or two-thirds of your favorite trio of hosts:
Yeah.
Funko Lou, myself, Hero Scroll, Spider Brando, still on a cruise. We love you, man. Hope you're having fun. But as you can see, we are joined by two friends of the show. Bottom left, we have Rome's, and then right below me, bottom right, you have Fabian. Guys, how you doing today?
Not too bad. Pretty hyped.
Good. We're here to talk some news, talk Godzilla, because again, even though I've seen this movie once and it was on Saturday, I haven't stopped thinking about it, and I'm sure the same could probably be said for you guys. So much so then Luke got a pop.
I had to. It's funny. My daughter earlier, like we heard like a sound outside, and it's all dark and looking in the back, and I swear I felt like it was a Godzilla moment where it was just like this long, like droning sound off in the distance, and I was like, "This is it! This is it! It's happening!"
I think about that when I drive through traffic far too often, and I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
No, it happens. It happens a lot.
Kaiju. What if a kaiju attacked right now?
Yeah.
I live next to the ocean, so I'm always constantly looking out towards
Honestly, just like my cup of water just starts like little, just bam, bam, bam. Like, oh shoot!
If you start seeing dead fish, you know you gotta run.
That's
the indicator. Man, you know you gotta get out of there. Well, let's start with the news. We got a few quick points. Nothing too major, but some nice stuff. First and foremost, the Spider-Man animated series that is coming out on Disney Plus got a little bit of an update. It's releasing in 2024 and changed its name from Spider-Man Freshman Year to Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. The series is going to cover the period of his life that the MCU didn't explore, basically like his first couple of years, his first iteration of his suit, new villain, and oddly enough, an original version of Norman Osborn as his mentor.
That sounds like the Ultimate Universe.
Are we excited for this? Do we want this?
I'm happy for it. I thought Daredevil was supposed to show up in it too.
I think there was a rumor for it.
Yeah, no, I think there was a still of it.
Yeah, there was a costume and everything.
Yeah, I thought it was confirmed that
yeah,
I'm blanking on his name for some reason.
Charlie Cox.
Yep, I thought he himself even confirmed that he was going to voice the character. Or Kevin Feige said it.
Yeah, someone said it that he was going to be in it. He's like on the voice cast.
Or we shifted timelines, and that actually is in the past.
I was going to say, unless we jumped into a different dimension, and I don't remember this. I feel like I remember seeing a still of Matt Murdock, not necessarily Daredevil, but Matt Murdock being in the series.
No, it was in the costume. That's the one I saw.
Okay.
Now here's the big question, though, right? They're introducing what sounds like a fair amount of new pieces to the MCU. What is the carryover? Is this going to be like a Creature Commandos type of thing, where we get these new introductions for characters in the MCU and then they go live action?
That could work.
And they get casted that way?
I can see that.
It'd be a good way to compete at this point in the game. Because they haven't, they kind of already did that with Captain Carter. So I guess they could do it more officially.
Yeah, that works. I'm ready to see it. It sounds like they're trying to pull from the Ultimate Universe, the Ultimate Run by Bendis and Bagley. And I know they modeled the Spider-Man from MCU from the Ultimate Universe mainly Miles stories, because I've been reading that one, so it kind of feels like it's more like a Miles story. And it'll be nice to see him in his old costume too. I kind of liked it for what it was, like a sweater.
Yeah. I think it was the best homemade suit, personally.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, this one's interesting. So I did look it up. Yes, Daredevil. It was shown full Daredevil costume. It's a black costume with red lines. Very
Yes.
reminiscent of Shadowlands, but not Shadowlands. And the other still was that first suit. It looks like where he has a backpack and like a prototype web swinging like cables. It's a very interesting suit, and he has like a sweater with a spider logo. You see shades of the homemade suit from the first movie
Mhm.
on this one, but not all the way. So maybe it could be like a second iteration, I feel like. But who knows?
Interesting.
I'm excited for more Spider-Man because I don't know what they're gonna do with Tom Holland because I know he said he was gonna quit acting for a little bit or he was gonna take a break. So I personally like Spider-Man in the MCU. He has one of my favorite moments in Homecoming, so I'm up for it. And plus, maybe we might get a hint to Uncle Ben because we never saw or heard a mention of him.
True. Maybe they make that a little bit bigger on this part, and it really seems like Disney's trying or Marvel is trying to use these animated series to kind of bridge the gap between live action and animated, or the wait in between of both. Because I feel like eventually, while we are going to get more and more X-Men 97, I feel like is going to come out first, and then they're doing something similar with this. So,
And then the new Wakanda series coming out too.
Oh, I saw that too.
yeah.
That I think would be really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, next bit of news comes from former Marvel man, now head of DC Creative, or the co-CEO, James Gunn, has come out and said in an interview that cameos that don't serve the plot are one of the worst elements of modern superhero films. I think he called it like cameo porn or something similar to that in those lines. So he says that he thinks minor appearances are fine if they don't disrupt the story, but it's the plot contrivances that develop from a cameo, not the cameo itself. So very interesting that he's one of the first ones to come out and say that. And I did see a lot of people bite back on this, saying, well, you're casting 1,000,001 people for Superman Legacy, so how can you say this?
That was the funniest part when I saw this. I was just like, your cast list seems pretty cameo heavy, and I don't know how they're all going to aid your story, but that's the hope.
I think the main thing he was jabbing at, ironically, is stuff like Wonder Woman in Shazam.
Yeah.
Like that was that was some stuff right there. That was pretty, I felt like just insulting to the, like, even just the story as it had developed during that movie in itself, just to throw her in there out of nowhere. But like, I mean, I'm sure there's a million other examples, but that was the main one that came to mind.
The Flash with what's the name, George Clooney at the end.
Yeah.
Which his comments that he actually just said recently that came out didn't really aid that big cameo reveal too well, where he's like, that's my last time I'm going to show up. No one's begging me to be to be Batman again. Like, no one's knocking on the door asking me to reprise my role, but it was positioned to really people off for the Flash movie. But yeah,
even Nicolas Cage, I think, came out and had gripes with his cameo, talking about how he was like, this isn't what I recorded. He's like, this isn't what I filmed, so I don't know what this is.
It's just a bad look.
It is. And I think it's a little tone deaf kind of on his part to come out and say that, not only because of the film, but if there is one world and type of genre of film that can get away with cameos for no reason, it is comic book movies. It does feel better when they are a part of the plot and, you know, have meaning. But sometimes you just want to see a cool character just because. At least I think I do, and I would assume a couple other people.
Let me ask you guys this real quick. Did any DC Zack Snyder movie have a pointless cameo? That would fall into this bucket that James Gunn is saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Martian Manhunter.
The Joker.
I loved it, but I mean,
I was going to say the Joker.
Huh?
Yeah.
the Joker in the
Oh, yeah.
Snyder League.
Because I think that's the one thing people are thinking, like, it's a pointless one, like the Wonder Woman is an easy one to use of like just character for the sake of it. But also I feel like Snyder's characters who were cameos were supposed to be impactful, but that takes a massive follow-up for them to feel good at the spot that they were introduced, and then just obviously never came to fruition.
Yeah.
And I think an important thing to note, I haven't seen anyone complain about this specific comment yet or use this comment towards that argument, but I feel like this is specifically in the main film. This is not about post-credit scenes. That distinction needs to be made.
But he's said stuff before in the podcast with what's the Rosenbaum?
Oh, the guy that he's from, yeah.
He said a lot of stuff about it, so I'm not really surprised that he keeps saying more stuff about it. And I'm pretty sure he's just starting the plot to get like people to keep Superman Legacy on their minds or his new universe on their minds. Because even Zachary Levi said something too recently, didn't he?
Well, next piece of news.
Next piece of news. Yeah, next piece of news. So it doesn't, but it does have to deal with that because Zachary Levi did later on kind of jab at it. But Sean Gunn cast as Maxwell Lord in the DCU. I don't remember if it's specifically in Superman Legacy, but he is in the DCU. Now, we say that because later on, Zachary Levi kind of came out and jabbed at it, talking about how it's easy to get roles when your brother is at the head of it.
I think he's salty. I just think he's been a salty dog ever since
Shazam.
Pretty much. Yeah.
For me personally, like, I mean, no offense to Sean Gunn, but I feel like without his brother, he would be just making movies that can only go on Tubi. Like,
not Tubi.
That's how.
Didn't Tubi just get like every DC movie or something for free now?
Yeah, the Batman.
Wow.
The Batman's on there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, he does
prior to that knowledge.
Because I know he does he does like the motion capture stuff too. So
yeah,
that stuff that's fine. That is actually like a skill set I feel like he has just for Rocket.
Yeah.
And all the other stuff he's done. But like I'm not too big of a fan of like the fact that he just keeps getting put in every time his brother has something for him.
Yeah.
Well, he's not the first director to do that because I know Christopher Nolan, he gets his brother to help him write the movies. I know Sam Raimi's always getting Scott Campbell. What's his name?
Hot Dog Man.
Yeah, Campbell. Yeah, Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, Bruce Campbell. And then I know Tim Burton is always using the same actors, his friends. Martin Scorsese. I could go down the list and like it's just. I think that's just a director thing. Once you get cool with the director, I think you're gonna get yourself a job.
Here, real quick though, here's the thing: is it's almost like an Adam Sandler thing, right? Where you see the people more instead of who's behind the scenes doing creative, right? These people are just characters in a lot of the movies. But Nathan Fillion is going to be like. James Gunn always brings like his boys, like his people, and it feels like that's the dominant group that you're going to see at the forefront. And like everything that's going to be important as of right now, I feel like you're going to see all these same people. They're just going to be recast as some sort of different character. And it just feels like a rinse repeat. I don't know. Maybe he has a minor role and it's not that big of a deal, but I would prefer fresh blood at a time where we're seeing a lot of recycling.
Chris Pratt is gonna be Booster Gold.
100%.
Probably. And
200%.
Here's the thing. I don't think I personally have an issue with seeing the same actors because I've heard that Adam Sandler thing where a lot of people are like, well, he only uses buddies. Well, yeah, if you make movies and you have a group of friends who like making movies, you're going to use your friends. Let's be honest. And if you're the friend, you're going to do it because guaranteed paycheck. Why not? But I think at least for me, where the weird issue comes from is why Maxwell Lord? Did anybody out there say, "Hey, you know who we want to see again after Wonder Woman, the second one? We want to see Maxwell Lord." Nothing wrong with the character. It's just he's one of those characters that's kind of in the grand scheme of what they used him in is ultimately forgettable. I know he has a lot more importance in the comics, but I don't think they're ever going to use him because he doesn't really fit into that universe where you're trying to tell the story of Superman, Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, Supergirl, all these other characters that in reality are a league on their own. No one wants to see Maxwell Lord.
He might be a mention because, I mean, if they're building a whole universe, he can just be like a sideline guy for the meantime till he actually becomes really important against Wonder Woman, or because mainly he's Wonder Woman, but I know he leads to Brother Eye. It's a Batman thing. But
I did see some comments when this news broke out that like people wanted a more accurate rendition of him from the comics. So I think there is an audience. There may not be that many, but there is at least some people are wanting at least something from that character again for whatever it's worth.
I mean, I personally want to see him done right. I mean, a lot of characters. I know y'all like Black Adam, and they did my boy wrong in the movie. Like, I want to see some of these characters have their actual justice because growing up, I'm a little older. I remember back then everybody was DC and now everybody's kind of Marvel. But DC they were a big deal back then.
I think that's DC fans here.
Yeah.
I get our core.
Yeah. But again, my question is, do you care about Maxwell Lord though?
I personally don't. I don't care that. Like, I liked a little bit of the rendition of some core parts of his character in '84, like, but it didn't deliver enough. Obviously, I mean, I'm not complaining that he exists again in this new universe, but I'm also not jumping out of my seat. Like, yeah,
That's a must have.
In Rome's?
It's Sean Gunn, so we saw him. We already saw him a couple times as Calendar Man. So I mean, he's the background guy. So I don't know. I don't really care for it as long as Superman is done right in the movie. That's all I care about.
Yeah, fair. We'll see where he ends up in because again, I don't think there was any confirmation that he is in Legacy. I think it is just DCU. So one of those things we kind of have to wait and see in where he ends up and see who else he gets to play with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Fabian said, Chris Pratt's booster goal. Yeah, well, that's the news, everybody. Not too much, but nice little tidbits. So next up, we're going to be moving on to our deep dive. Again, if you haven't already, subscribe to us here. Join us on our Discord because Discord gets previews of this before it airs here. So, Godzilla -1. Rome's, Fabian. Me and Lou have talked about it for from Saturdays, over 48 hours at least? Yeah, definitely over 48 hours. A little more than 4 days, right?
We've talked about this for hours in total now.
Yeah. We love the movie, but we want to hear your guys' thoughts. And Fabian, I'll ask you first, and then Rome's, you can also say what you think. What do you guys feel about Godzilla -1?
Man, so I watched it Thursday, and like you guys, I've been thinking about it ever since. Every little bit, every moment, every character part, and like I think back on it, and as amazing as Godzilla is, the most interesting part about this, in not to say that it's the first ever one that ever had a remotely interesting human aspect to it, but man, was it just a 10 out of 10 feature with the humans. Like, I loved every single character. Everybody felt like they had this chemistry and they all belonged together. And which is crazy because they all just kind of bump into each other. They're kind of just it's just the circumstances that are brought up with the whole thing, with it being post-war. And the overall theme of the movie to me, which I absolutely loved, it to me at least, what it was like reaching out to me is like, do I deserve to be happy? do we deserve to be happy as human beings, no matter what we've done, what's happened in the past, and what we're going to do in the future? Like, and that just resonated with me so much. And everything from the character work to the direction to somehow $15 million or less budget to make Godzilla look like the amazing thing that he is, looks so like real in a lot of the shots. I was blown away. It was easily a 10 out of 10. I hardly can't even think of any flaws in the film.
Oh, well said. Well said. Rome.
I guess it's my turn.
It's your turn. It's
Yes.
your turn. Before we dive deeper in this, what'd you think? What was your overall feel?
I saw it twice now.
Ooh.
Yeah, because the first time I watched it and I was tired. It wasn't that it was boring. It was just I was just tired and I watched it late. And then the second time I watched it, I kind of appreciate it a little more because I mean, I didn't know how to rate it the first time, and now that I watched it the second time, I kind of loved it more. But the thing that I like about it the most is that it's not scared to like that it deals with like themes that we don't really see in most Hollywood blockbusters, like cowardness and I guess PTSD, like the way they kind of made it for this film, and using Godzilla as the main catalyst for his PTSD, and just like even talking over certain or like talking about certain like uncomfortable aspects about the war. And it was nice seeing where the action is elevated by the characters. I think Steven Spielberg used to do that a lot in his films. I think I could compare this to like Jaws because it makes you care first about the characters. And then when Godzilla strikes and everything, there's actual fear for the characters because, it already happened before. And now that it's happening again. I mean, Godzilla, I do like the destruction stuff. I thought that's what I came for. But I left with a different experience that I am glad to say that I did. I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to see it in IMAX, but with the themes that really resonated and there's actually a really good message that I like in the film that I think sometimes Hollywood forgets that we're here to experience something and not just go home and eat our popcorn, like we want to leave with something when we leave, when we go to the theaters for an experience. And I feel like this one really did that for us, or in my opinion.
100%. I think it's safe to say that all of us walked away feeling something, right? And it's not just entertainment, because I feel like the one thing that I've struggled with hearing in a lot of conversations between like, oh, Godzilla's back on the map, right? We have the Eastern and the Western version, and you have people who love the monster fights, and we talked about it last time. There's a rumored 8-minute monster fight that's going to be in Godzilla and Kong, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. But when I walk away, like that awesome feeling kind of dissipates in a way where -1 still, it's enough that like people are incorporating these thoughts and randomly in their day. I'm sitting here working and I'm just like, man, I remember this scene. I remember the main kid, it just, what did you guys feel from that human element in Rome's? You had mentioned this of Jaws making you care about the character. What was one thing that stuck out that you feel is really missing from the most popular shows or movies and things like that today that are commonly known and iconic like a Godzilla is?
I think it's the focus on character and not being scared to show the character being flawed, because I know nowadays they kind of, and I hate to say it, but a lot of movies, they kind of feel like they rely on jokes, and I'm kind of glad that this kind of took itself seriously, but also knowing that it's not in a normal world. So, and then even I think the most, for me personally, the scene where he has that breakdown where he can't tell whether it's all a dream that he's with them, and she tries to snap him out of it. I think we don't really get those type of moments that I really wish that like the Marvel movie, because sometimes I remember the Marvel movies used to do that a lot, and I think it's just they're just behind on rushing. They have a deadline like every other movie,
Mhm.
and I feel like sometimes they kind of brush past that, because in the Marvels, I think it would have been a little better. I mean, I still liked it, but I think the moments between Monica and Carol, I think that would have really saved the film, because character interactions, because they care about each other, we learn to care about them. And I think that's the same way with this film, when the characters interact with each other and they know they have their relationships with each other. And because we care about those relationships, we want the hero to succeed and also succeed over himself as well. But that's what I think.
Fabian, I think you had something.
That was well said. That's pretty much exactly how I feel about it. As far as the human aspect, I feel like that there's some aspects of what this character went through that, as far as like as great as like Captain America the movies are, or you know, a lot of the MCU early days that a lot of people put in with like the Winter Soldier and everything. This seems like an aspect that maybe could have been inserted into that. And like you brought up the Marvels, like Carol's been probably through a lot. She doesn't remember who she is. She doesn't. She's missing a whole aspect of like her own being. And as great as an actress as Brie Larson is, I feel like I'm looking at scenes in this movie, and I'm like, why can't we? Where's Hollywood missing this? Like we
Mhm.
should have gotten something like that now, especially with like these people that are just literal veterans in their own right, whether in space or on Earth. Like the closest thing we have to that is like stuff like Thor, where he had his emotional breakdown and just lost himself to depression. The Fat Thor was a gag to a lot of people, but I mean that's how it is for a lot of people. They slip into that, and it kind of gets brushed over. But that's the closest I feel like we've gotten that I can think of off the top of my head. And that's just kind of the level of storytelling that we want. We want something where instead of him it coming across as a joke, like we could have had these characters giving us like these very serious moments, and then for the sake of a punchline, they just got to keep the ball rolling. And I know that was the Marvel formula for so long, but I feel like this movie can actually like change the tide for giving us more of that human aspect in these movies.
I think the big thing to that point is like this movie's runtime was what 125 minutes, give or take some. But the fact that they were able to establish that connection with the audience through the main character and everyone else associated with them was also elevated by that, it happened fast. And there was a great story told in between beginning and end. And it really goes to show of like what character first and a priority there can do for a project. So that when you do carry them over into a next, we know exactly who they are. And that will ultimately just continue to build. It so that being said, right? What was your feel from a Godzilla standpoint for all you guys? Like the looks, the design. We know coming off of like a Shin Godzilla, maybe some people don't love that classic take or that certain design. We have the 90s, Godzilla, it's more of like a T-Rex. And then we get the beginning of this movie and you're like, what are they doing? Is this the route that they're gonna go? And how's your feel on the visuals, the look and Godzilla himself?
So my history with like Godzilla was always, this is like the franchise that was always a little bit out of my reach as a kid, because as far as I could get a hold of, like it was just renting DVDs or VHSs from Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, because I didn't have internet access, so I couldn't get a hold of these over from Japan, or nobody was bringing them over here.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I knew back then, so I was watching like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, Godzilla Final Wars. I don't a whole bunch of them that I can't remember all their names, like Godzilla 2000, and I was always wanting more, and it's something that kind of just slipped away from me. And I love like all these different designs. I even love the Matthew Broderick Godzilla 1998 movie. I watched that movie so many times, and just for the little glimpses of this fake Godzilla that we got. And honestly, this Godzilla, the way he looked, the design, probably my favorite. And that's not even a recency bias. I just felt like the shape of him and the scales, the look on his face, and the way he would regenerate was just perfect to me. Like, this is like the Godzilla that I've envisioned my whole life as a child. And I felt like it came to fruition. Like, the suit is the suit back in the old Japanese days. And in my mind, it looked like what was in this movie. Like, when I was a little kid, this is like kind of really what I was like, adults see the suit and I saw this. Like, this is what I visualized. But I absolutely loved it. He was a menace. He did not care. He just had that energy of like, if it exists, I'm going to stomp it into dust, and it's just for fun. I don't have a purpose in life. Like, that's the energy that I was getting from this Godzilla, and I loved it because it wasn't anything personal, and he also wasn't going to turn babyface either.
Right.
He was a heel through and through. And what really also sells him in the look and everything is like, I don't know 100% where the practical effects start and where the CGI begins.
Yeah.
I feel like my favorite scene in the movie is the boat. It's just his head in the water and the scales in his back. The way the camera is following the boat and bringing us and panning us around them and giving us their reactions to everything. It felt so personal. The stakes were there. They were trapped to be there. It was all set up so perfectly. But then when you look at this thing coming right at you, it's just like you brought up Jaws. It was like just reminiscent of that. And it was like a great recreation of that tension. And to me, it's just even better just because it's Godzilla. But like, and then you add in like having to throw these mind bombs into him to try and get him popped off in his mouth. And it was just something to behold with how this Godzilla worked and how he moved around. And I loved it.
Wait, real quick. You said something, Rome's, before you jump in on Godzilla and the look and design. Did you guys feel that whole part of when they were throwing the mines in and Shikishima doing his thing when he took over on the gun and he's like, it's just what I do kind of thing? Like, did that feel really far-fetched for you guys? Or did that just feel like it's slotted? Like Fabian was saying, it was just set up really well. And it was just like, yes, this is what probably would transpire.
It felt natural. It felt natural because it was developed earlier. So, and right whenever this happened, it was kind of like fitting the glove, like it's ready to happen now. And but yeah, I mean, I thought it was set up well, perfect. And like he said, what makes it worse is that they're in a wooden boat, and he just took out like a destroyer. So the tension is like you're already biting your nails whenever he's coming at him. Especially with the fins, it looks like a shark, but a mutated one, but yeah.
One quick point that I've been doing kind of on the side is looking up posters for this film compared to other ones and how that affects the marketing and the just overall feel of this Godzilla versus other ones, where if you look at the MonsterVerse ones, like the 2014 King of Monsters, Godzilla Kong, it's kind of a focus on making him look cool. So, for example, in King of the Monsters, some of the posters are him fighting the other kaijus, him, shooting his heat ray into the sky, and it's just filling it up, which does look cool. And then you compare that to something like Shin, where Shin Godzilla is trying to focus on the creepy factor, where the two main posters are his look. One is a white background with the full Godzilla. And again, he looks kind of unsettling. And then the other one is very reminiscent of what you would see on like an early horror movie poster, where it's a completely red background, him and his basically like silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very horror movie like. But then this one for all the posters that I've been able to find so far, it is Godzilla in destruction. It is in rubble, cities burning down behind him. Even the IMAX one, which to me personally is kind of the best poster out of all of them, is the one where he's kind of like reaching out, blue eyes through the smoke. Again, just a nice little tidbit to really make you feel how what they wanted to go for his feel in this movie.
He looks like a menace in the posters. Because I mean, I personally wasn't a big fan of Shin Godzilla. I mean, I liked the movie, but I didn't like the design because I didn't like the eyes and how it looked. But in this one, I like the look of Godzilla because it reminded me of the. And so I grew up in Mexico during the summers, and they got me this Godzilla because I started watching the, like, you could go walk down the street, like, and like in walking distance, you can go and there's like a video store, and they had like a bunch of Godzilla movies. So I used to watch them, and they got me this action figure. Well, it wasn't like a real like it wasn't, it was kind of like a bootleg version of Godzilla, but it was very detailed and it looked almost exactly the way it did in this film. And so I think for me personally, I really liked it, this design. And he looks a little more scarier in this one than the legacy one. The was it? Yeah, right. It's the legendary version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He looks like he could kick Legendary's ass.
100%.
Low key, the
Legendary's got to drop a few pounds. You gotta get ready to step in the weight class.
Yeah. So you brought up a nice point, and I think something, a lot of people have been kind of comparing this to Shin Godzilla. I wanted to get kind of your guys' thoughts. We lightly touched on it, but didn't get too deep into it. And Fabian, maybe we can kick it off with you because we heard Rome's kind of say it's not his favorite. But what do you think about Shin, and between the two, which one you like more? And if this one is the higher of the two for you, what do you feel has over Shin?
So I watched, ironically, Shin, I think only like 4 months ago, like the first time, because it was on Crunchyroll, and I had finally noticed, and it was like on my list of things to watch, because I was like, this looks like a cool reimagining, like a reset on the character. I wasn't too blown away by it when I watched it. Like, it's cool, and I like the horrific looking aspect of Godzilla in that, because it felt like they were really going for the horror aspect in that, like you had mentioned earlier. And like that was cool, and the human aspect of it felt like we were bringing together a nation, like everybody was coming together. But that felt like the typical formula almost, where like that was trying to reinvent the wheel a little bit, but it felt like they just still stuck with their normal spiel. And the reason that I would put this one just far above it is just like Godzilla is like the frosting on the cake, like, or sorry, like the cherry on top. The human aspect of this movie is so micro. It brings you right into the aspect of why Godzilla is so devastating, because he's taking away something that is so precious to these people. They already went through so much with this war, and they just want to live. And they have it something that's possibly even worse than the war, ready to take that away from them again. And there's, because you learn so much about what these people care about and how they came to be and where they are all set up, it feels so natural, but it also feels like so meant to be when you are with all these characters, especially when you get into the fact that he's a kamikaze pilot, and you get into the aspect where he's ready to do that finally, to make peace with everything. But he's told, no, you got to live. You have to live. And that it's just such a nice bundle of joy. Like I almost, the human aspect of this movie is so good that I feel like, and I love Godzilla. Godzilla is fantastic, but I feel like it almost didn't even need Godzilla, other than the fact that it's kind of the nice or not nice. Obviously, it's devastating, but it's just it's like I said, the cherry on top. Like you have the thing that sells why it's worth fighting for, why life is worth continuing. So that for me, that's why this blows Shin Godzilla out of the water.
In honor of him not being here, I think that deserves
That was good.
one of these,
Yeah.
especially with the cherry on top. And that deserves that.
Dude, you said it there when you were explaining this. I was just like, going back and forth. And I think you guys know me well enough. I was thinking about this, show me, tell me type of thing. It's like Godzilla was that show me, but it was just enough to push things into a really favorable experience of like, you guys are telling me this is bad news, and then Godzilla's like, I'm going to show you why I'm bad news. Bam, there goes your city. I like that.
Yeah, it's like Jaws. He's out of mind, or how's that saying go? Out of mind, out of sight.
Out of sight, out of mind. Yeah.
And but you feel his presence is ever looming,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's what kind of elevates it, because he doesn't really. I don't know if you noticed, he doesn't really show up too much, but you always know he's around the corner, and because of the imprint he left on the main character, it's gonna come back, and there's nothing that they know themselves can't really stop on their own. So it kind of gives it like an edge towards Godzilla. But even I'm gonna echo what Chief Fabian said, and honestly, if they would have took out Godzilla, this would have been a great film by itself.
Like, yeah, 100%. All right. I have one question. I have one question from a Shin to Godzilla -1 comparison. I need to know. Do you guys prefer the Shin Godzilla kind of like beam ray type of atomic breath that he can do, or did you prefer the atomic ray that the -1 Godzilla did? I'm seeing more debate on this of people's preference.
I mean, I don't want to like make it seem like I hate Shin Godzilla, because they did their thing. Like that was cool. It was a nice film. Like, but it didn't stick with me and have me thinking about it for the next almost week now. So I mean, the way the spine like is just poking out up one by one, turning blue, and then it just builds up even more and more. And not only that, but once he shoots this thing, it is echoing what a lot of what Godzilla even resonates in its existence is just the metaphor of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, and it's a mushroom cloud. And it is, you see the devastation, you see the shockwave, you feel it. When you see the girl flying away and pushing our main character out of the way, you feel the devastation of that push. Mm-hmm. I felt like I was being pushed in my seat. And I didn't even see it in IMAX. Like I don't even think there's even a remote like comparison here for me.
Same here. I didn't. I mean, it was cool with Shin Godzilla, but like he said, when the when they start coming out, it's kind of like it's kind of like a drum roll of what's about to happen. Yeah, and like like he said, even the blast radius around the atomic breath like devastates everything around it without even touching anything. And that honestly, this one, I like this one. I feel like it kicks a lot of ass. This one, I mean, it looks visually stunning, and it's got a kind of like a menace towards it, because once you know, it's kind of like a indicator. It's kind of like what Jaws did, and using the music to dun dun.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the same thing. But once they start like coming out, you don't have that much time to react. That you have to do something right away or move out of the way. But the devastation, that scene was hard. Like that scene was real hard.
The sound effects too, and the music, like you mentioned, like it. I don't know if it was just my theater. I didn't see it in IMAX again, so I felt like the sound was on completely on point. the reusage of the themes, the roar, the blast, everything was perfect.
Yeah,
Just talking, like I'm literally getting goosebumps again thinking about each of those scenes. Like the boat scene, I was like, ooh, I think that's my second favorite scene. But that one when he's in the city and there's just that build, and then you get to the point where like, bro, she saved him. But we were talking about this, I think, last time. One of the elements that I feel like people kind of forget is just, at least for me when I was sitting in that theater, I was literally in awe during that scene. And I feel like I'd be one of those people who would just get stuck just staring at him. I'd be frozen. Like I don't think I could keep running away because I'm just paralyzed by fear. And what is this thing? Like somebody's gonna have to pull me into an alley because I'm definitely gone. Definitely.
Yeah. Shout out to them for making this scene that good, because I think they knew exactly what this meant for the characters and also the portrayal of Godzilla in general. And this serves such a good point to really make you feel like, just doubt the entire movie, in the sense of like, can our heroes really beat him? Because it comes down to the final fight. And I don't know about you guys, I'd love to hear your perspective, but I was doubting the whole time if they would actually win, or if, because obviously, storytelling tells you they need to win. That's a good happy ending movie. But this movie can go both ways. They could either win or they could lose, and both outcomes are going to deliver a good movie. Did you guys feel that doubt throughout that final fight?
Yeah, it felt like they were fighting underweight, or what's that word? They were fighting undercard, and they weren't the. I didn't have too much faith in them either.
Did you feel that because this is almost like a one-off movie, or did you feel that just based on like there's no way Godzilla comes back? Because I think that's something to take into consideration of it's not a part of some sort of cinematic universe. It's not a part of some sort of bigger growing franchise where they're trying to milk every dollar out of you and make it as big of a spectacle as it could be. Does that play into the story being told of like, this could be a finite movie? There might not be anything that comes after this.
I wasn't really thinking that because, I mean, it's Godzilla's movie. It's him on the poster. So I'm thinking he's going to win at the end of the day. That's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe they'll move him somewhere else, or they'll try to like, I didn't think they were actually going to like take him out. I thought they were going to like move him, or like, because not just that, he was so intimidating too. So like, I felt bad for them going up against him. I was like, no, someone's going to get hurt. And I was more scared for the characters going up against him towards the end than what do you call it, Godzilla actually getting taken out in his own movie.
And that feeling extends to everybody within the film, and not just the main characters, which is kind of crazy, where you don't want to see them lose, but you normally in those types of films, they'll sacrifice a ship or two. They probably would have sacrificed one of the captains and the scientist guy maybe. But in here, it was like, no, I want all of them to survive. Maybe they would have. I thought when the tugboats came in, I was like, oh, the tugboats are going to get taken out, but they didn't.
I thought my young guy was done. I was like, no, they say they spared you. Why are you coming back? It's over. Your war experience lasts a day.
Yeah. But that just, again, goes to the credit of the story and making you care about these people, even if you don't get a whole lot of time with them, where you're just happy to see them live, which is hard to say normally in a kaiju movie where we're like, yeah, hope everybody gets wiped.
I mentioned this previously. This is probably the closest thing, and for all the anime fans out there, The way I felt in this movie is very similar to how I felt in Attack on Titan when the female Titan showed up and they were trying to take out the female Titan, but also like elements of like a rumbling in a way of just the sheer like panic and fear and hopelessness of facing an adversary like the Titans or Godzilla.
I actually forgot to mention that because I did feel like that vibe, like you were saying, like the Attack on Titan. But I also felt like the human aspect of it was like almost like a K drama,
Yeah.
or even like just some of these anime movies that have come out, and I mean they've been around forever, but where it's like it's an anime movie, but it's not like it has nothing to do with fighting. It's just like the romance, the dramatic side of things, and I felt like I had that type of story being told to me, and they just managed to mesh these two aspects of storytelling together, and it just fit together like a puzzle.
It goes nicely with everybody's experience again, because like we kind of discussed, I can't remember if it was in personal chats or in another video. A lot of the cast and crew that have worked on this did work on live action anime adaptations. I think from like Rory Kenshin to JoJo to I think Parasite even I think is what the composer worked on. So you can definitely tell the elements that they learned from that and said, okay, what works best in a live action movie? Let's put that in there. And let's maybe leave some of the stuff that might not work as well from anime translated onto the big screen.
Here's a question I have for you guys as we get towards the end of our Wednesday live stream. If you could take the concepts and the elements that they had here, right? And it's a lot of Eastern pieces that are put in here. Again, we're fans of anime. We understand the different types of genres that exist in there, the types of storytelling coming from a comic, the book, the source. We know these authors, characters, people, artists. What is one mainstream franchise that you wish they would take elements of this and put it into? If you had to pick just one franchise to really duplicate the feel here.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
For sure, Star Wars.
The Fast and the Furious. Could you imagine? No, but I think I have to double down with Marvel, because I feel like it works with Marvel because a lot of those characters aren't. Not everyone was born superhuman. Not everyone's a demigod in that world. A lot of it is based in reality, and a lot of them being based in reality, it opens up the micro level of storytelling that you can tell in that world is, something like even just Daredevil, like you're in all the seasons of Daredevil, you get really into the character and you get a lot of these deeper moments with the character and their emotions. And it doesn't have to be a TV show, but I feel like there's more opportunity just because it's based in the person behind the mask more so than the mask. The persona is the person behind it, and the persona for a lot of the characters in Marvel, not everyone's like that, but it's really like Peter Parker is just putting on a facade as Spider-Man, like with the fake confidence and whatnot. And I feel like this would do wonders for like Tom Holland's next movie of having like a depressing manic episode of him not having anyone to turn to anymore because nobody remembers him.
Yeah.
Like that's where I would still want to see it the most.
Fabian, I'm looking over your shoulder. That's where I want this applied. I want something like this that we got with -1 applied to the Fantastic Four. As Galactus as the main villain.
That would be crazy.
It's the vibe that I want to get. I think that they can do it too, especially if they position them around that same time. And these are Fantastic Four characters from the 50s and 60s, some that kind of have been affected by that type of era. type of events. You have a lot of characters, you have a blending, but again, the biggest challenge everyone always asks, how is Galactus going to be handled? Kind of think you have a weird blueprint here from a Western standpoint. People who are like, I don't know how they're going to do it. Watch Godzilla -1.
This would be perfect, like almost perfect to really incorporate the life stories comic series, both Spider-Man life story and Fantastic Four life story. I think this type of format would serve it well. I don't think they'll do it just because those stories are they're dependent on a idea that's kind of harder to tell in a movie, especially that would fit into the MCU. But if I were to take this and give it to like a Western IP or property, I would say Pacific Rim. Give Pacific Rim another chance with something like this. Obviously, balancing the action set pieces between the more human emotional things. I think you get something pretty special with that, because that's a different movie that I think needs a little more, and that would just set it off.
I really like that movie. I like the first
do
one
too.
a lot. I like the first one a lot.
I do too.
enjoyed the
Same
second one.
here. I like the first one a lot too.
I didn't even see the second one, but yeah, the first one is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I would love to see them do it again with something like this.
I think Matt Reeves' Batman universe has could have the potential for more of like, and I feel like it already touches on the character aspect a little bit right now, but I feel like you could get really deep in that sequel with stuff like that, and Batman's a great character to do that with. But yeah, that one might be an obvious one.
Still though, it's having that, like, I don't know, man, there's something about this movie specifically that has really shown me it's possible to blend a doomsday level type threat with characters who obviously care about same thing we've been talking about this entire hour, but at the same time the visual aspect of those things matter. A Godzilla that moves like the Godzilla that Legendary created, that isn't a Godzilla for me that I personally love. It's fun to watch, but even Pacific Rim, I think, fell into this trap of your kaiju level characters, the way that they can move, the level of destruction doesn't really equate in my mind. They shouldn't be able to do that. I get stuck on that. So when I see a Godzilla that looks like what we saw, that's when he's out of water, he's slow. This guy's not taking off and he's like, yo, Usain Bolt, like, line up next to me, dog. It's over. I'm taking you in 100-meter dash. Like, this guy is going to take a minute to get somewhere. He just has range. That to me, I don't need to see a 1,000-yard dash from Godzilla and Kong. Personally, that's not what's going to do it for me.
Yeah,
Don't
those
forget
movies.
the Gauntlet. Oh, my bad.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say Kong's got an Infinity Gauntlet, so he could just snap
His weird little robo arm.
I was gonna say, for at least the last time that I felt like I cared anything about the human aspect of those movies, including Kong, is the very beginning of the 2014 Godzilla that kicked all this off. There was a very good human aspect to the parts with Bryan Cranston, and then they kind of just like they went for the 3-pointer, and it flopped. They just completely they passed the ball to the other team. The game is over. Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen could not carry the rest of the film. Like it died for me after that.
I actually like the Legacy of Monsters show. They're really focusing on character on that one, which is kind of odd, but I know for me personally, I really care about the characters. I mean, I don't think there hasn't been that many monsters in it. I think there's only been like 2 or 3 episodes where the monsters actually show up, but the human story they're actually telling in that one is really compelling. I mean, in my personal opinion.
I like
the
it.
Monarch? Is that what I've only heard things about that. I haven't like even seen scenes of it on TikTok or anything.
Here's my thing with that though. It's their Godzilla moments, not to spoil anything, but the moments of like what we were saying with this Godzilla is very indifferent I'm not going to single anyone out. Like, you just all are kind of there, right? In some of these, like in Monarch, there's no reason why Godzilla would be walking and destroying and then pause and then look at the main character and be like, you understand what I'm saying? You know me, I know you. Like, we have a weird connection right now. And the main character's like, kind of. And he's like, I'm going to go back to destroying. Like, thank you for your time. That's the kind of stuff for me where I'm like, I like the Godzilla. It's going to keep moving. Like, he's going to walk through that bridge. He doesn't care if you're standing on that ledge. Like, if you are standing on that ledge, you might catch a tail. And if you do, that's it. GG's, you're done. Those are the differences for me personally that kind of like notch Western Godzilla's down a little bit. Like, we need to ET the main character in Godzilla every single time. Like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I like watching the the Godzilla ones. I mean, I mainly just watch it for the fights and stuff.
Right.
Other than probably the first one where they had like the Bryan Cranston part, and then that's when I'm like, okay, I'll just wait till. And then not just that, but in that first one, every time Godzilla's about to fight, they go off camera. That one really, I was like, that one kind of, and not just that, but in the first scene, you see Godzilla's leg come down. It kind of looked like a chicken leg, like like Kegel. I mean, not Kegel, Kinkles. I was like, I don't want to see that.
Oh, that's just the effect. Someone with the stick, and they're just like, now, and they're like, yep.
And
On the ground.
like, just like visually, like, it's crazy. And just to go back to the budget thing, it's crazy how the legendary Godzilla has looked over the course of what now is going to be 10 years since that version has been around. And I'm looking at a snapshot of Godzilla right here. So I was looking up the posters when you brought that up, and this thing looks so real compared to that one. You could tell that thing is like just a CGI, whatever. Like, it holds no weight to me. It's just like, okay, I can't wait to see this thing blow something up, and that's it. Like, this thing looks horrific, terrifying. I cannot, like, if I saw this in the street, I'm like you said, I might as well just stand there. I ain't outrunning this. Like, this is not. There is no point.
Well, the director, he's a CGI artist, and he's the one who did the CGI for this movie. I think he did something else. I don't know whether he's a producer or the composer, but he used to do CGI. So I think this is his actual first movie. And I guess they let him take the reins on it. And he said that he already knows how to, or what he should do in setting up his shots for the CGI parts. So that way it can make it easier for him to come in the edit room and put those scenes together with the CGI and everything else. I think that's why it kind of looked better. But the $15 million or less budget, I don't know. That it looks amazing for what it is.
I need to know what all these other studios are spending their money on.
It's also reminiscent to me of like Jurassic Park, just the first one, where the CG in that, because of the way that they used it, where the practical stuff was like up close, and then when you got wider out, it was in the dark, but you had the CGI still holds up to this day somehow, and that is a like almost ancient movie now. Like,
Yeah.
you could dig up copies of the VHS with the dinosaur bones. Like, I don't understand where we're going wrong in this conversation of these giant budgets with all like the character. Maybe it's just because there's just one thing to worry about in this film. Really, I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of things to juggle in a lot of these big budget movies, like Star Wars, Marvel, even the other Godzilla movies. But like, filmmaking with nerdy stuff needs to get drawn into this. Like, I need more of this.
Yeah.
It needs to focus on cinematography, because I know that sometimes I guess the overbloated CGI backgrounds, that kind of like for me is just, it kind of takes me out of the film. Like, I really like Shang-Chi, and like sometimes when I notice it's like a CGI part, or I'm like, because I really, really like martial arts films. So like when I was watching that, it kind of annoyed me because I was like, that's CGI, that's CGI, that's CGI. I'm like, I like it whenever it's like this, because I like on set. Like whenever Christopher Nolan does his films, It's always out there in the open, and that's what I liked about this film, because in the beginning, whenever he arrives for the first time on that island, you could tell it's not a CGI background. It looks like it's actual on location.
I think that's what we were mulling this around when we were talking about Deadpool 3. And, all the stuff with Ryan Reynolds has come out, and they're out, on set, and they want to make it as practical as possible. And, people have $1,000+ lens cameras on here that are capturing, and we have tons of leaks. And seeing this movie and kind of hearing everything we're talking about and seeing what's been really successful, I think there is that need for fans to kind of go back to basics in a way and make things a little more grounded and rooted in just logical things. But at the same time, how many times we hear these stories about these massive companies where people are in charge of a scene, but they don't know what's coming before it. They don't know what's coming after it. They just know this is what they're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to edit, animate, use your skill set for this 5 minutes. And Rome's what you're saying, the Yamazaki, what's the director's name? I can't even think of his name.
1 second.
But even still, like, there's something to be said about having the ability to write, direct, and also be in charge of VFX, or at least oversee. Yeah. It matters. And I don't think it's a mistake that your more successful movies or shows are the ones where you see, oh my gosh, that person's name is on this, and they're on this, and they're on this, and they're on this. They're just a condensing of some of these projects, I think, would go a long way to at least have some more oversight. I don't know what's missing from the other studios. Star Wars, we know they're trying to get back and have one person kind of calling the shots. DCU have, 2 people calling the shots. We thought Marvel has one person calling the shots for a lot of these projects, but there's a lot of gaps that I hope the success of -1 has really been like a nice reality check for a lot of people to be like, there's a reason why people aren't as connected to these stories and characters.
I think they will. This will definitely start a conversation, at least with some studio people. This is things like this don't happen in cinema as much anymore, I don't think. At least the success of this feels very singular and different than anything we've seen in a while. So with
really
people taking notice, it is, and it's getting more accessible each week. I mean, you look at it where now this following week it's gone up an extra, I think, almost 100 theaters that it's going across in the country. So that's a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if someone out there takes notice in this and starts talking about it and says, okay, we need to start doing this because obviously people care about it and it adds something to the movie.
Well, what I meant is that, like, the film itself is like accessible because it's not a part of a major franchise. And, like, honestly, I would recommend this to people that aren't even nerds. Like,
100%.
and I was like telling people at work about this, like, hey, this is a really good movie. I know some people at work that like watch like K-dramas. I'm like, you're gonna love this aspect of the movie.
I said the same thing, dog.
Just you don't even need, if you don't care for the giant lizard, just ignore those parts. But you're gonna want to tune into the humans. Like it's just that good. Like I would like tell my mother, who barely can speak English, like just to give it a shot, because it's a story. I feel like this is just gonna be timeless. Like it's like an instant classic.
Same here. And I know the director, he said he's interested in directing a Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the last guy who directed a Godzilla movie directed Star Wars Rogue One. So imagine how good that one could be. And he said, the director also stated that he has an idea for a sequel, but if he does one, that will be the last one. So, but
I love that.
Yeah, I would love it. I mean, everybody stayed toward the end, right?
Yeah.
Where, I mean, Godzilla's not dead technically.
Right.
But,
okay. What do you want to see next? Let's just say hypothetically he does make a sequel. Well, what story would you guys want to see? I think, Hero, we were going back and forth of like what we would want for the main character.
Yeah.
and kind of where we felt from that, and then ultimately like what other addition do
Yeah.
they have from a monster side of things if they
Yeah.
did do that.
Yeah, we'll let them answer that because shameless plug, go watch our video on the review on that where we do talk about that a lot more. But Fabian and Rome's, what do you guys want to see?
So I feel like it naturally has to go to the monster versus monster aspect, but I would like it to not be like some crazy monster like Ghidorah, like King Ghidorah or something. Like just like I don't know, I don't remember the one that's like the turtle shell one. That one's pretty popular. It has its own movies on its own. I think it starts with a G as well. But
Is it
they're
no, not Gidon.
Gidon, maybe. I
Something like
don't
that.
remember. There's only one King of the Monsters, but I just feel like that's where you want to take a sequel, and that's about as far as you could take it. Because I mean, in the beginning of the movie, there seems to be this. I kind of felt like there was just like a lore that like people kind of accepted that this, like the little version of this Godzilla existed, and then if I'm not misremembering, doesn't the bomb make him bigger over the years?
Yes.
That he kind of just that
Yes.
becomes a part of him and he grows and mutates. So there might just be other monsters that it might also have been affected by that blast, and maybe that's where the sequel chimes in.
I would focus more on the character and how he would react seeing Godzilla come back. Like, is he all going to come back? Is he strong enough to say that, oh, I've already faced my fears down? I'm not going to let this like consume me anymore. And I think they should take like the Book of Job with the fighting the Leviathan, because at the end of the day, he's fighting a dragon. If Godzilla practically is a dragon, and he's got the fire breath just like a dragon would, and I think how the characters would react if seeing Godzilla again. Will they be able to work with each other so smoothly again, or will they have their doubts working with each other because they didn't work the first time? For me personally, I think that would be a more interesting thing than seeing them fight another two kaiju's at the same time.
I want to say it. I just want to say it. Rome's, I'm actually with you, bringing back the main character on that. I would be curious to see what he would think if Godzilla did come back. I really would love to see them tell a Mecha Godzilla story, because I feel like no one's really nailed that and made Mecha Godzilla feel really impactful, but some sort of watered down version of it, not like, technology wise, I don't know, it depends on the time skip, if you will. But I would love to see the exploration of the story of being like, hey, we saw this threat, we had no preparation, we need to prepare, right? And I feel like that's a classic thing. But also from a Godzilla standpoint of just being that representation of like, have you not learned? You saw what nuclear weapons, atomic bombs were capable of. You saw what I am capable of. Now you try to build something to rival my power, and you want to do that. And it's more of like Godzilla takes that like scorched earth standpoint versus just,
Ooh,
whatever you want to say.
what if it skips so far ahead that like the main character is like an old man, and it's like the next generation has to deal with it, and like if just going just based off your Mecha Godzilla idea, it's like I mean that would be enough time to like have something remotely suitable like already built and put to the side for that. And I mean, everyone was pretty aware of this thing in the movie. Like every nation, it just so happens that Japan had to deal with it. Everybody was having an issue with it, and maybe they figured out how to pull it together, and they got something going. I feel like that is a good way to get the mesh of like our two things here. Is like because then you'd have humans in the human aspect inside the other monster in Mecha Godzilla.
Like, who's the real monster, right?
The human or the monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, Spider Brandon, you love that one. Hopefully. I don't know. I just want more. Like I keep talking about this. I could keep listening to you guys talk about this. I want to watch it now. I want to watch it in reverse. I want to rewind it times 10, half speed, whatever I can do when this comes out. I need to invest. I need to purchase it.
Same here.
I
I'm
also
buying
would I wouldn't be mad if there wasn't a sequel though. Like
Same.
if it didn't
Same
happen,
here.
I would not be mad.
Good.
Don't make this Jaws 2 or 3. Yeah.
But that's just a testament to to how much confidence that we have in the people behind the project. Because not everything should get a sequel. It's just like, okay, I think that might have been a one hit. Let's not. I'm thinking the Mummy 1, Mummy 2. It's just like, stop doing them. Like, no more.
I think because this movie is made with passion and there's an actual creative vision for it. So I think that's why it was done so well. Because, I mean, from what I see from like the Marvel standpoint, it seems like a lot of them are just doing it for a check. They're not doing it because they care. I think the Russo brothers cared a lot about their characters. I think that's why their films were a little more higher quality because they cared about their characters. And then the writers that they had for them as well, like the Avengers Endgame, the Captain America ones. And with this one, it was kind of nice seeing something done in a refreshing way and where I actually want to like see it again and again. And like, I don't, me personally, I don't think this movie's ever going to get old. I'm going to put it on like 5 years from now. I'm going to feel the same way that I did.
100%. All right, Hero Scroll. You got any additional Godzilla questions for us before we close for the night?
I think we got to cap it there because if not, we kind of like we've said before, this is one of those films that we'll talk about it for hours and find different things that we like and think about different parts and aspects that we didn't talk about earlier. What I do have to say, and we closed out the other video in the same way with our review. We are talking about it and we are making this sound really good, and it is. However, we cannot do this justice fully. You have to see it to fully appreciate and grasp everything that we're talking about right now. If you don't see it, you do lose a little bit of it. So if you haven't, take the time this weekend because it got extended again. Watch it if you have the time.
I have a question. Does everybody have it in the top 3 movies of this year?
Yes.
From what I saw, for sure. I mean, we've been talking about this. I think I flat out, it's for me, it's Guardians Across the Spider-Verse and Godzilla -1.
I'm struggling where this ranks all time for me. I think that's the conversation we need to have a little after is where does this rank all time in film? Not Godzilla, it's easiest. It's probably the best one without a shadow of a doubt. Definitely top 3 movies or top 5 if you guys want to, you can argue that. But I think the real question, where does it land in all time? That's the conversation.
I mean, I just watched Past Lives yesterday, so that movie is really good too. So
I want to see that one.
It's good.
I haven't seen that.
But you're right, Hero Scroll. Like this one, I think is gonna have like I think people are gonna talk about it like Jurassic Park. Like it's just gonna be like one of those films.
Yep.
Like, it's just this year that movie came out and it changed everything because I feel like it's gonna have the same impact as like Dark Knight. Everybody wanted to do the Dark Knight. Everybody wanted to do the villain. Everybody wanted to make it super realistic. And if they learn the right lessons from this film, we're going to see that influence, hopefully, on Hollywood films like Marvel, Star Wars, DC, all the other ones, Fast and Furious.
I just wanted Fast and Furious. I wanted to add to anybody that's watching this on the outro, don't let the fact that this is just subtitled like sway you away from seeing the movie. It is 100% worth it. I know that's a big deal for some people. The deal breaker. They don't want to go see a whole movie in a different language. It is 100% worth your time, even if you have that gripe with something like anime or even like most recently like the Parasite movie. That was a really big one that was all in a different language. It is 100% worth it. So was Parasite if you've never seen it.
Well said. Well said. Nothing's stopping this movie. Technology's there. The capabilities to tell these stories. It's all there. It's just who can do it. I'll be excited to see the next time something like this drops. We circle back. We all get together and we're like, remember when -1 made us feel this way? Maybe we'll never talk about it again. Who knows? I don't know. But with that, everyone, we do appreciate y'all joining and watching live. If you're watching this post recording, thank you for supporting. Special thanks to Rome's and Chief Fabian. Always a pleasure having you both on the channel. Hopefully we're back here soon. 2023 is coming to a close. 2024 is right around the corner. With that, a new year, new projects, new conversations. But everyone, until the next video next Wednesday, 9:05 Eastern, keep watching, keep reading, keep nerding out. We'll see you then.
That was fun, guys.